Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. And for this week, our group will be presenting about research approaches. So this is our group member, starting with me, Athirah, and then MICHELLINA, BIK31703, NISAFIRZANA, HANI, ARSHAD, and NURUL, TASHA, KHALEESA, BIK31703. So this is our table of content. We will briefly explain about 5 approaches, which is quantitative, qualitative, mixed method, inductive, and deductive approaches. So let's begin with the first approaches, which is quantitative approaches. So quantitative approaches is a method for testing objective theories by looking at the relationship between variables. The variables can be measured using instrument to enable statistical analysis of numbered data. So if you guys use quantitative approaches, your final written report will be include introduction, literature and theory, methods, results, and discussion. So some people who use this approach can make assumption about the ability to generalize and repeat the results, or adjust for alternative or counterfactual explanation, or deductively pass theories. And for the second approaches, which is qualitative approaches. So qualitative approaches is a method for finding out and understanding what people or groups think about a social or human problem. So the researcher will include developing questions and procedures, data collection, in participant environment, data analysis inductively building from particular general themes, and the researcher making interpretation of the data's meaning. So if you use qualitative approaches, your final written report has a flexible structure than the quantitative approaches. So the difference between qualitative and quantitative data is qualitative is the type of approaches that consists of descriptive statement. For quantitative data is the type of that can be measured and expressed numerically. So and then qualitative data is text-based, meanwhile quantitative data is number-based. So if you want to have statistical analysis, it's better with quantitative data than qualitative data. So method of collecting data for qualitative data, such as interview, written document, observation. And then for the quantitative data, you can do surveys of observation, experiment, and interview. The next approaches is mixed method approach. So mixed method approach is approach to examine involving collecting both quantitative and qualitative data, which then you guys will combining both form of data using distinct designs. So qualitative data tend to be open-ended, which means you can give any answer the respondent want. And then quantitative data usually includes close-end response, which means they have choice of answer. So early thought explaining why we use mixed method approaches, which are that all method has bias and weakness. So the collection of both quantitative and qualitative data will neutralize the weakness of each form of data. So the combination of quantitative and qualitative data give additional insight beyond the information provided by either the data alone. So next is procedures for expanding mixed method. First, mixed method approaches is ways to integrate the quantitative and qualitative data, such as one database could be used to check the accuracy or validity of the other database. And then one database could help explain the other database, and one database could explore different type of questions than the other database. Next, one database could lead to a better instrument when instruments are not well suited for sample or population. Lastly, one database could build on another database, and one database could alternate with another database back and forth during longitudinal study. Next, there are three primary design of mixed method approach. Firstly is convergent mixed method. This method is a form of mixed method design in which the researcher converge or merge quantitative and qualitative data in order to provide a comprehensive analysis of the research problem. The second one is explanatory sequential mixed method. So this method, after quantitative research, the researcher will use qualitative research to explain the result. So qualitative data will help explain quantitative data result. So the qualitative part follow the quantitative phase, making it sequential. So the third method is exploratory sequential mixed method. This method is the opposite method of explanatory. So after the qualitative research, the research will use quantitative research to explain the result. So this time quantitative data help explaining the qualitative result. So the qualitative phase can be used to build an instrument that best fit the sample and the study, identify appropriate instrument for the follow-up quantitative phase, develop an intervention for an experiment, design an app or website, or specify variable for quantitative studies. That's all from me. Move on to the next presenter.
Okay, on to the next approach, which is inductive approach. It does not involve formulation of hypothesis, which means the researchers are free in terms of altering the direction of the study after the research process had started off. And it moving from specific observation to general explanation, which also known as bottom-up approach. Next, it starts with research questions and objectives that need to be achieved during the research process. In this process, we make many observations or tests, then we determine a pattern. Next, we come up with an explanation or theory. This approach aims to generate meanings from the data set collected in order to identify patterns and relationships to build a theory. Next approach is deductive approach. Deductive approach involves testing dissertation hypothesis, which means the hypothesis will be used to design a research strategy. It involves thinking from general to specific and also called as top-down approach. It studies with deductive approach. The researcher formulates a set of hypotheses at the start of research. Then relevant research methods are chosen and applied to test the hypothesis to prove whether it is valid or not. Example as given here. As I mentioned earlier, the inductive does not have hypothesis in it. So the research process will focus on finding answer to this research question only. Meanwhile, the deductive have hypothesis, which the hypothesis will be tested during the study, and the research will prove the theory is valid.
Next is the three components involved in an approach. So as we can see, this is the framework for research. This is the framework that we use to explain the interaction of these three components and to reiterate in planning a study. Researchers need to think through the philosophical worldview assumption that they bring to the study, the research design that is related to this worldview, and the specific methods or procedures of research that translate the approach into practice. So we have three components, which is philosophical worldviews, research methods, and designs. Okay, for the philosophical worldview, the term worldview as meaning is a basic set of beliefs that guide action. Uba 1990, page 70, and others may call it paradigms, by Lincoln Ingham and Uba 2011, as well as Mertens 2010. It is also called epistemologies and ontologies, by Coty 1998, broadly conceived research methodologies, by Newman 2009. So for the philosophical worldviews, we have four worldviews, which is positivism. Second one is constructivism, transformative, and pragmatism. Positivism, sometimes called the scientific method or doing science research. For the second one, it is typically seen as an approach to qualitative research. The third worldview is research inquiry needs to be intertwined with politics, which means the research needs to be related with politics. Okay, the fourth one is it arises out of action, situations, and consequences. So this is the summary for the four worldviews, where we can see that where these are the key assumptions of researchers for the four worldviews. The next element is research designs. The researcher not only selects a qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods study to conduct, the inquirer also decides on a type of study within these three choices. Research designs are types of inquiry within qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method approaches that provide specific direction for procedures in a research study. Others may call them strategies of inquiry. Okay, so based on Creswell, we have three designs: quantitative designs, qualitative designs, and mixed method designs. For the quantitative designs, we have experimental designs, non-experimental designs such as surveys, and longitudinal designs. The second one, qualitative designs includes narrative research, phenomenology, grounded theory, ethnographics, and case study. For the mixed methods, it is convergent, exploratory sequential, and complex designs with embedded core designs. Okay, the third element is research methods. The third major element in the framework is the specific research methods that involve the forms of data, collection, analysis, and interpretation that researchers propose for their studies. As shown in this table, it is useful to consider the full range of possibilities of data collection and to organize these methods. For example, by their degree of predetermined nature, the use of closed-ended versus open-ended questions, and their focus on numeric versus non-numeric data analysis. Okay, these are some examples of research approaches as worldviews, designs, and methods. So we have quantitative approach, qualitative approach, and mixed methods approach. So for the quantitative approach, we have positivist worldview, experimental design, and pre-test and post-test measures of aptitudes. In this scenario, the researcher tests a theory by specifying narrow hypotheses and the collection of data to support or refute the hypothesis. An experimental design is used in which attitudes are assessed both before and after an experimental treatment. The data are collected on an instrument that measures attitudes, and the information is analyzed using statistical procedures and hypothesis testing. So for the next one is both is qualitative approach, but it has different worldview, which is constructivist and transformative. The design is also different, which is ethnographic and narrative. For the first situation, the researcher seeks to establish the meaning of a phenomenon from the views of participants. This means identifying a culture sharing group and studying how it develops shared patterns of behavior over time. One of the key elements of collecting data in this way is to observe participants' behaviors during their engagement in activities. The third one is the inquirer seeks to examine an issue related to operation of individuals. To study this, stories are collected of individual operation using a narrative approach. Individuals are interviewed at some length to determine how they have personally experienced oppression. And the last one is the researcher based the inquiry on the assumption that collecting diverse types of data best provides a more complete understanding of a research problem than either quantitative or qualitative data alone. The study begins with a broad survey in order to generalize results to a population, and then in the second phase, focus on qualitative open-ended interviews to collect detailed view from participants to help explain the initial quantitative survey.
Okay, class. What factors influence proposal design using qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method? Okay, worldview, design, and method are complemented by the research problem, personal experiences, and also audience. For the research problem or question, a research problem is a question or concern that needs to be answered. Okay, the problem comes from a gap in the literature, conflicting research results in the literature, topics that have been ignored in the literature. They need to give a voice to marginalized participants. And the last one is real life problem in the workplace, at home, in the community, and so on. These are the examples for the research problem and question based on quantitative and qualitative, and also mixed. Okay, so for the quantitative, if the problem calls for the identification of factors that influence an outcome, the utility of an intervention, or understanding the best prediction of outcomes. So the best approach to use to test a theory or explanation. So for the qualitative, if a concept or phenomenon need to be explored and understood because little research has been done on it, or because it involves an understudied sample. So the topic maybe is new and the subject has never been addressed with a certain sample or group of pupils, and existing theories do not apply with the particular sample or group under study. So for the mixed method, it is useful when the quantitative or qualitative approach, each by itself, is inadequate to best understand a research problem and the strength of both quantitative and qualitative research, and its data can provide the best understanding. Okay, the next one is personal experience. Okay, researchers on personal training and experiences also influence their choice of approaches. Here is the example. Okay, for the quantitative studies, it uses traditional mode of research. It needs to include certain procedure and requirement. Quantitative research, highly methodological technique. For qualitative studies, allow for greater creativity and operate within researcher design framework. It is suitable for researchers working on social justice or community participation. Okay, for the mixed studies, the project will take extra time because of the need to collect and analyze both quantitative and qualitative data. It fits a person who enjoys and has the skill in both quantitative and qualitative research. Okay, the last one is audience. First, researcher write for audience that will accept their research. Next, audience may be for journal editors, readers, or faculty committees, conference attendants, colleagues in the field. The third one is the experiences of this audience with quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method studies can shape the decision made about the choice of design.